All right, everybody. This is Omar Liles from Agape Love Network and also from ATS Fellowship. And so tonight we're going to be talking about biblical counseling, life coaching, and professional counseling. What is the difference? All right. So I am glad that everybody is able to actually meet here tonight for this amazing topic. Okay. And so, being that everybody is here tonight, which we're missing two people, but one of them will actually be on. So, as of right now, I would like you to, each of you, to actually introduce yourselves.
My name is Vallori Thomas, and I am the founder of the Institute at Wow Coaching and Consulting, a certified professional coach and a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. Certified professional.
Okay, Brother Earl.
Good evening, everyone. I am Earl O'BRIAN. I am a clinical mental health counselor and also I am a confidence coach. I currently work at Step by Step Mental Health Counseling Center where I work with couples, individuals, and families and children.
All right, all right. Thank you for actually your introduction. So, just go just a little bit deep into actually what each of you do. Let's start off with Vallori.
I'm a professionally certified coach. Um, However, the way that I am articulated and market myself is a strategist,
Mhm.
organizational strategist. My sweet spot is professional development and performance coaching, um, as well as the work that I do with wellness with women.
Mhm.
Um, I carry workshops around the world. I do tours to third world countries where we go to impact the communities that we actually visit, and it's quite a delightful event. The meeting of the minds, the sharing of information, cultures, language, and empowerment. Um, and I've been doing this for about 21 years.
Awesome. Wow. It shows that you have lots of experience. Okay. Earl, Mr. Earl.
Yeah, so I'm basically a psychotherapist. I work with couples, individuals, and families. I do a wide range of modalities, whether that be cognitive behavioral therapy, identifying those thoughts, changing those thoughts, up to something that's more productive. I work with families. I work with couples, both married and not married, whether that be infidelity issues in the marriage, communication issues, working with internal family systems. If there's differences within the family. I work also specializing in somatic therapy,
Mhm.
understanding that trauma often gets stored in the body or more so
Mhm.
than just in the mind. So I do a couple of body awareness, pendulation, just helping vagus nerve reset, strategies for like, relieving, mitigating stress and anxiety so that they can be able to actually heal from trauma, whether that trauma was from childhood, whether it was persistent institutional, intergenerational, or their personal own pieces. And most of those sessions in a therapeutic space range from about 30 to 50 minutes.
Awesome, awesome. So here's the thing. So tonight, I want to let everybody know that tonight is actually a special night because I generally deal with relationships. Okay, we deal with singles and couples, but I also talk about learning to deal with things that are difficult and uncomfortable in relationships. And so we have guy talk, and we also have woman talk. And so behind the conversations and stuff that I actually have, because some of us actually have training. All right, because people want to know the legitimacy of people who are doing these podcasts, people who are actually out there giving advice to individuals about relationships, about marriage, whether it's depression, whether it's grief, whether it's dealing with mental health, or even dealing with coaching. And so I want to actually bring people who are professionals on to discuss these very topics. So and about like where did they get their training from, how did they go about getting the training, those kinds of things that I actually want to bring to the table tonight. So just let us know the training that each of you had actually received and how long did it take, because a lot of times people think that being a coach or even just being a therapist or a mental health coach or a counselor, that it's like once like more like it's like an overnight kind of thing, and it really isn't. So each of you, I'm gonna start with Vallori. uh, please just let us know uh, that.
Okay. And so for my training, um, it's there. So let me just break it down because there are a lot of gray areas when it comes to coaching in terms of what the distinctions are, right? And so I'm sorry, one second. So there is a term called certification as well as credentialing. Right. And so certification has to come before credentialing. And so for my journey, I got my certification first, and my certification course was like I think like 90 days. To that effect, right? I actually did it online. I went to looked at the ICF, which is the International Coaching of Federation, right? They're the gold standard when it comes to the coaching industry, right? When organizations are looking for professional coaches, they are specifically looking for whether or not you're ICF certified. So I went to their website or dashboard and did a little research in terms of what that would take. So I identified a school that were in which I could get certified. Now, certification means that you would spend 60 hours of training learning the core competencies that are required by the ICF, the ethical guidelines, and the practicalities. And they have a particular standard. Once completing those hours, right, which are called it's ACSTH, right, which are approved coaching hours. That's your certification, right? So I want you to think about certification and credentialing as undergrad and grad school. You have to be certified in order to be credentialed. And so that's a big distinction that a lot of people collapse together, but they're not the same at all. You
Mhm.
you need to be certified in order to get a credential. Now, your credentialing goes through levels not so unlike college, right? You have your first level, right, which is called ACC, and then your second level, which is PCC, and then you have a mastery level, right? And your mastery level is, I would equate that to a coaching doctorate, and your PCC level masters, and your ACC is your bachelor's, right?
Mhm.
And each one of those levels it require a certain amount of time invested in coaching, paid and non-paid hours. And I could go through that and break it down for you, but that's where my journey began. So once I became certified and I got my 60 hours, to go to the next level, I had to accumulate 100 hours,
Mhm. Mm.
coaching hours, right? So you might say, well, how the heck am I going to do that, right? And so if you're working with a particular school or institute like our institute, IWCC, there are different ways that the company can facilitate and support you or connect you with places or resources where you can accumulate your coaching hours, because that's 100 hours.
Mhm.
Oftentimes that can be 100 different people.
Mhm. Mm.
And so you have to accumulate that, and that needs to take place in a certain period of time based upon how you are gauging or looking to go to the next level, because there's a time stamp in between. So
Mhm.
if I go back and I think about going from certification to full credentialing, it took me about a year and a half.
Mhm. Mm. Mm. Yeah, because I had noticed that they have different coaching titles. Well, in terms of credentialing and certification,
Yes,
it was the associate
exactly. That's
coach,
your
and then
ACC.
the professional coach, and
That's your
the master coach.
PCC.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then the MCC is your masters of
yeah,
coaching.
yeah. And then I was looking at the hours that have to be completed for the coaching experience, and some
Yeah,
went up to like 500 to like
that's it.
2,400 hours.
And it makes sense because
Yeah.
coaching is, which is why a lot of people question it. At the basis of it, it's conversation.
Yes.
So you might say, well, what the heck could somebody tell me? But
Hmm.
what it really is about is supporting a person. It's not telling folks
Yeah.
or advising in that way. It
Mhm.
really is being with a person exactly where they're at and creating awareness to blind spots
Yes. Hmm.
and using language and the practicalities in a way that a person gets to generate for themselves. And when
Yeah.
you do
Yeah.
that, it's magic.
Hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Brother Earl, Mr. Earl.
And thanks for sharing that, Vallori. You taught me a lot just now
Yeah.
in terms of
Now we can go to you now.
right,
tell
right,
tell
right,
us
right, right.
what it takes to train as a coach and a counselor. What was your training like? What was the background? What was your experience?
Okay, so when I was an undergrad, I had gotten my bachelor's in health services management, right? So what I did intentionally was make sure that I took courses that were tailored to what I wanted to go for in my master's program, right? So when I got into Fordham University for my master's in clinical mental health counseling, um, I took the basic core classes, the foundation principles, theories, and foundations. I had to take trauma and neurobiology. I had to take career counseling classes, just pretty much going down the list and just making sure that I had all the basic fundamentals in line, right? My internship was at NYU Rusk Rehabilitation and Medicine, where I did my internship for a year, working with clients who had traumatic brain injuries. Now, the span of my master's program within my internship was 3 years. You
Mm,
can finish it in 2 years. You can finish it in three. I just wanted to spread it out because I really wasn't in a rush because I wanted to make sure that I soaked up all the necessary information.
mm,
Once I got my degree, I automatically got into the field. Now, right now, I'm currently um, training to be certified as a relationship expert under the Gottman Institute.
mm,
That's something I want to specialize in. After I get my license, which takes another 3,000 postgraduate hours to obtain. So once
mm.
I get those 3,000 hours and I take the licensing exam, I will become a licensed mental health counselor, which causes me to actually operate in private practice, out of which I don't need a doctorate for necessarily, right? Um, so on top of, because I know in the state of New York, for mental health counselors and social workers, for social workers to get their LCSW, they need 3,000 hours. For mental health counselors in the state of New York, we need 3,600 hours altogether.
Mm, mm,
Yeah, we
mm.
need that altogether. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely a rigorous practice. There's still that a lot that I'm learning, especially working with the BIPOC community. there's
Yeah,
there's still a lot that I'm learning. Especially there's things I had to unlearn while I was in after grad school. Um, Understanding that mental health modalities, theoretical orientations is not a one size fits all.
mm,
And it's funny because I also want to go for a certification to be a certified clinical trauma professional, right? So I want to work with couples. I want to specialize in that, but I also want to make sure that I focus on my niche in terms of trauma. But yeah, you can't
mm.
just become a mental health counselor overnight. You cannot become a coach overnight. You cannot be
Yeah,
a social worker overnight. You have to really put in the work. And most times, in most cases, some people, even when they get the degree, they're not sure what they really want to specialize in until the additional 2 to 3 years after that.
mm, mm, mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I see that, the training is very, very strenuous.
yeah,
And and I always advise people that if they want to go into any counseling or coaching, especially coaching, and I want to make this very stern, do not attempt to try to get any coaching that could get the training within 24 hours, because you're really not going to learn anything. All right. Because there are a lot of people out there saying, oh, I'm a life coach, and they just took that 1 day seminar, or they went to some 2 or 3 or 4 hour workshop, and they're a professional. Now, all life coaches and all mental health coaches aren't equal.
Right.
They're not equal. And
No.
so that's where the confusion is, because when it comes down to coaching, um, there's really no how can I, what's that word? Uh, there's no alignment as far as and there's no uniformity in
Mhm.
terms of training across organization to organization and throughout all the 50 states. So everybody's coming up with their own training.
No,
You know,
that's not true.
yeah,
I'm sorry, Omar. That's not true.
yeah.
There is a standard, which is what the ICF is for
Yeah,
the
well, with the
coaches.
with the ICF, but I'm talking about from organization to organization.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are lots of organizations out there. All right, ICF has a standard. All right, now you have other organizations that are being created that really don't have pretty much a standard like ICF, I would say.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry I
No,
misunderstood,
it's all right. It's okay.
because there is a standard.
Yeah,
And as you go through the different levels of credentialing, as you mentioned earlier, the hours increase, right? So
yeah,
for me, I have a PCC and I'm going towards my MCC, but
yeah,
you have to have a PCC in order to be able to. If you want to start an institute where you can certify other professionals or other people to become professional coaches, you have to be at least at the PCC level,
yeah,
which is how I founded
yeah.
IWCC. And
Hmm.
so I curate and work with individuals from all walks of life. You'd be surprised,
Yeah,
right? It's like even, and what I've been getting lately is a lot of people from the medical field. And you got to say, it makes a lot of sense post COVID and all the emotional trauma, the mental trauma, the physical trauma that the staff went through, right?
Yes.
And so
Yes.
every area, every industry, especially with this new awareness consciousness that we have on the planet now, when we speak of mindfulness, folks are really like taking a look at what it takes and what wellness actually means, which
Hmm.
has coaching be now in 2023 the number two industry on the planet, with IT being number one for those factors there.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's very true and all, because me looking at a lot of the organizations, a lot of the training out there and things of that nature, I see a lot of people who really don't understand what it really actually takes to actually be a professional in these specific areas. So let me ask you, Brother Earl, what is the difference between, because you've taken coaching though, right?
Yeah, I'm actually taking it right now. But well, no, no, no. I'm not taking it now. Right now, I'm doing a training to be a relationship coach, a relationship expert.
Okay, all right. But
Yeah,
so your background is mostly, you deal with psychotherapy as well.
yeah. I deal with strictly psychotherapy. But
Okay,
with the interesting thing with my degree is I can switch between psychotherapy and coaching.
oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
see
can
that.
switch between the
Okay,
two. So I don't. So I wouldn't necessarily need a
yeah,
certificate as a life coach.
yeah.
I could get if I want to, but I don't necessarily need it because they trained us in the program to
Oh, okay, all
to do
right.
both, right? But yeah, my focus is psychotherapy.
Okay. So how about between the two of you? Tell us the difference between counseling versus coaching.
Okay, so psychotherapy, right, is basically what we do is talk therapy, right? It's just basically a way to help people like to have like a broad variety, right? A myriad of mental health illnesses or emotional disturbances, right? Um, so psychotherapy can both be short term, right, which is like probably like a few, probably 8 sessions, 6 to 8 sessions, or something that can be long term, right, dealing like in terms of months or years, depending on the severity of what the person is coming in for. So an individual could come in and they may be dealing with depression, right? based on the intake that we do, the assessments that we do, right? Questionnaires that we do. We have to use our clinical judgments to be able to let a person know if their sessions will be weekly or bi-weekly, right? We ask them if they're taking medications, if they're taking antidepressants, so we can kind of monitor that medication management, right? But as psychotherapists, we do not refer medicines. We don't refer medications. We don't sign up on those, right? We are trained to diagnose, but we are not, and to build that, right? But we do not. So what I would do is I would have to go to my directory list of psychiatrists, right, and refer my clients to them if they need medications. Say if they need it for anxiety, or if they need it for ADHD, concentration issues, right? So the medications integrated with talk therapy, right, having them to do assignments will give them the ability to really and the clients, I stress this, I really stress this, and I got to be stern with this. If you're coming to a psychotherapist, if you're coming to a therapist, a clinical social worker, if you're coming to a psychologist, and we give you work, please do the work. The therapeutic space is only 30 to 50 minutes a week. So the clients there have to do the work, because sometimes clients don't do the work and then they don't see no progress and they blame the therapist. It's not really our fault.
Right.
We're not called to baby you. I don't know if that sounds harsh enough, but we're not called to micromanage your progress. If you're serious about the work, then you have to come in and do it. But yeah, we're trained to do a wide range of things. So CBT is mostly the go-to, right? That really helps people to identify their thoughts, right? Change their thinking. I like to say it like this. I don't like to put a defect in my clients. Something did happen to them. They did go through something. So what we do is I use the analogy of a toolbox. Show me what's in your toolbox, and I'll let you know what you need to take out and what you need to put back in. Right? Because clients are the experts of their lives. We're just called to assist them.
Awesome. So Ms. Vallori, what and do can you not?
You're kind of breaking up a little bit, but I got you. And so, in as much as what Earl shared, the same premise stands for coaches, right? We are not the experts in our clients' lives. It's very important as part of our ethical guidelines that we are very clear about who we are and who we are not. Even in our coaching agreement, that's something that has to be upfront. And the reason being is because for whatever reason, when it comes to therapy, even with all the awareness that's on the planet now, the history when it comes to mental illness for a lot of families and cultures, especially people of color, it had often been swept under the rug or quiet, and not spoken of. And so it still permeates because it's hardwired in people's DNA because they grew up with that. And they grew up with treating that. And so I'm making this point because a lot of times you folks will come and hire a coach when they actually know they need a therapist. However, because of the stigma that therapy might have for them, we have to be very discreet in our screening and be very clear who we are and who we are not. So the way that the coaching industry distinguishes between counseling, therapy, and even being a consulting is that all of them, right? A coach, a counselor, a therapist deals with the who of a person, who they are in that moment. However, a coach focus with their client will be from the present point, go forward.
Yes.
A therapist will be peeling back the onion, so to speak, so that they can move forward. A therapist and a counselor, right? A consultant, which is a unique distinction as well when it comes to coaching, because a lot of organizations will hire a coaching company as a consultant for professional development and so on, and to that extent, right? They're dealing with the what of the organization, and still their focus is present and future. Very different than a therapist or a counselor who delves into the past. And that's how we hold it.
Yeah. And a lot of times, a lot of coaches, they can't diagnose,
You cannot diagnose.
Yeah,
That's
you cannot
against your
diagnose.
ethical policies.
Yeah, you can't use the DSM or yeah, pretty much you can't diagnose or use the DSM models or even use the title as a licensed counselor.
You cannot. The caveat is much like Earl, right? Who is a licensed therapist, and so he is able to wear two hats based upon his training, the what it actually covers and so forth. He's able to wear two hats. However, as a coach, if I don't have that additional training for trauma or depending on what my niche is, if I don't have that additional training, I it's very, you will lose your certification, your
Yeah.
credentialing.
Mhm.
It's like licensing, right?
Yeah.
Because you have stepped over the line. You cannot diagnose, and you can't tell people be prescriptive in your
Mhm.
coaching practice.
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where it gets very grainy, and you can that's where also to where you can actually get sued, you know, because of your lack of training and your lack of being forward with your client and letting them know that you're not an actually trained professional counselor.
One thing that I train my candidates that come through IWCC with
Yeah.
is to be very intentional with their screening process
Hmm.
and sharing information in terms around their parameters and what their service actually provides, as well as what it does not provide.
Hmm.
Because I'm going to just say it this way: grown people will only tell you what they want you to know. So you
Hmm.
have to be strategic and really be mindful, because people do carry therapy as a stigma still, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
true. It's true because and the reason why, especially in our community, why we there's such a stigma surrounding mental health and therapy, is because of the forefathers of psychology, right? Right, the white our white counterparts, right? When mental health services was not available for us. If you really read the DSM-5, those modalities did not have us in mind at all. But if you actually read like things like PTSD, that fits our description, right? So think about it, for like 400 to 500 years, the amount of dehumanization, right? Rape, abuse, the injustice that our people went through, they had to go through that period without any type of help. They had no outlet. They didn't have anyone to really sit down and unpack these things. Therapy wasn't even considered, even for World War II veterans that were Black,
Hmm.
people of color. And think about it, the reason why the stigma happened is because even when they tried to experiment with us in psychological evaluations and assessments, it caused more harm than it did help.
Hmm.
Caused more harm than it did help. So now that also perpetuates chronic abandonment in terms of like seeking for those resources, leaning into community, being able to talk to other people, and i.e. your friends, your spouse, brothers and sisters are not your therapists. They're only in place for communal purposes. That's it. People love to say, "Oh yeah, I can do what you do." So let me put a case in front of you and then tell me what the presenting illnesses are. How long has this person deal with? How long has this person been in this space, and why? Let's go further, because we believers, and the Bible talks about be angry and sin not. We like to criminalize behaviors rather than investigate them. So coaches, therapists, we are trained to actually investigate the means behind why a person is holding a stigma against seeking professional help. Because Black people, oh, we don't tell our business. They're gonna shove medications down your throat. Sorry,
Hmm.
that's a psychiatrist. It's not a therapist. It's not a coach.
Hmm.
So when there's a lack of language and when there's a lack of understanding in terms of our realm of expertise and what we're trained and called to do, some people are afraid to get that help because they automatically think they're going to get sent into an asylum or psych ward if they say what's really bothering them. If they say that they're having visual hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, they don't understand why. So a lot of people are afraid to actually get the help that they need because of the stigma that's surrounding so much around people of
Hmm.
color.
Hmm. Yes, yes. But so Dionnea Seals, she's up, but I think she's having some technical issues right now. So when she does come up, I'm gonna have her introduce herself, and we just.
Well, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Okay, all right. Well, I can at
Yeah,
least.
so it looks like something's wrong with my webcam because it's not even coming up. It's not even
Oh,
coming
I
up.
I still would have been
So
good if you had the other camera. It would have been all right. We're not
what'd you
perfect.
say?
Even if you was on the other camera, it still would have been all right.
No, I got this camera because my other camera wasn't working.
Oh,
So
okay.
right. So it's a
Yeah.
whole situation. I don't know what's going on. But it's
Oh,
nice to see everyone. Sorry I'm late.
oh, it's okay. It's all right. Let everybody know who you are, and let us know about your training because you are a licensed professional counselor. Tell us what did it take for you to get there, the hours, and what is everything that is involved when it comes down to into becoming a professional counselor.
Sure. So I am a licensed clinical professional
Oh, okay.
counselor. I graduated from an LPC to an LCPC, which is in the state of Illinois, because every state is different. In the state of Illinois, you cannot operate your own business without having an LCPC. So I graduated in 2015 with my master's, with my LPC that I had to sit for an exam for, take the test. I passed it. I had to do 60 credit hours to get my master's, 100 practicum hours, I think,
Mhm.
and 600 internship hours. I think so. And
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
for my LCPC, I am a doctoral candidate. So I started my doctoral program in
Woo.
2016.
All
Yes,
right.
thank you.
Okay. All right.
In
Yes.
2016. And because I'm in a doctoral program, some of those hours can go towards my LCPC, which is what happened. And so you need like 1,000, when I write this down, let's see, 1,680 hours supervised for your internship for your LCPC.
Yeah.
And then you have to successfully pass a test. And I did that. And yeah, I'm glad that's over with. I just got to knock this dissertation out. And so that's been my journey in clinical mental health counseling. With
Mhm.
my master's, we had two tracks. You can be school track or clinical mental health. And I was clinical mental health. And
Mhm.
so now I'm in a K-CREP. Well, I'm in a K-CREP accredited doctoral program. I graduated from a K-CREP accredited master's program, which is very important for my field in counseling because it tells the world and it tells people that you have gone under this program that has been, the standards are set, it's been vetted. And so it's also a great help for the public to know that these people have been trained and under the standards set forth by counselors.
Mhm. Mm. So
So
as
yeah,
far
pretty
as
much that's it.
yeah, so as far as the test goes on, there are national exams for professional counselors and mental health counselors, and
Mhm.
also ICF has their own test as well. So starting with you, Diona, let us,
Deanna.
yeah, there you go. Let us know about the test that you've taken, and then we can, move around.
So my math for my LPC test, it was some theory, it was, application of things, kind of more general versus my hold on. I'm sorry. My battery is saying that it's how, but it's plugged in. Guys, I have no idea. This is out of all the days
Yep.
to have some issues. Okay, wait a
It's
minute.
okay.
All right. Okay. Okay, here we go. And so my LCPC was, man, it was kind of brutal. I had to take my test twice actually. The
Mm,
first time I took my test, I wasn't ready. I will say that because my father had passed away, and I kind of pushed myself to do it. I totally wasn't ready. The second time I had to take it, my head was clearer, but it was definitely they graded you on so many different areas.
mm,
Can you diagnose well? Can you what was it? Can you supervise? Well, so they had questions related to supervision, more like vignettes, case vignettes. And you had to break it down. You had to diagnose this person. You had to see, well, why is this person here? Rule out some things. What would be good questions to ask this person? Things like that. And it could be more than one answer. And once I got to know the hang of how to do the test, then it became easy. It became easy because it's one thing to know theory, but you have to know how to apply it because you're going to meet so many different people out in this world. And fortunately, I had a good pre-run as a caseworker before I started my master's program. So, but yeah, it tested different types of things that you should know as a private practice. You should know as someone who is independent and who does not need that supervision, thereby having that LCPC.
Awesome. All right. Earl, Mr. Earl?
It's Deanna, right?
Yes, Deanna.
Deanna, yeah. I mean, she pretty much said it all. I mean, for her licensure and the LMHC, it's pretty much the same thing. So what we have to do is, once we, like she said, get the 60 credit hours for the masters, we have to apply for a limited permit. So in the state of New York, because I know for different licensures and cross states, the requirements are slightly different. Not that much of a difference, but we apply for a limited permit, which permits us to practice psychotherapy in the state of New York. As we are working towards the 3,000 post-grad hours, or what they would call extern hours. Once you have your LP, you're actually eligible to take, I think it's called the National Clinical Mental Health Examination, Counseling Examination. So we have to take that, and I'm not even trying to take that right now. So because that test is brutal. I believe it's, so Deanna, for you, was it like 4 hours to take that exam?
It was about 3 or 4.
3 or 4, yeah, more or less. Okay, so yeah, pretty much the same.
Three or 4, and we got our results like that after you're done because it's on the computer. But one thing I did do, I prepared myself. Like I was taking multiple practice exams, and until I saw myself getting a consistent passing score, I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah, so the approach is pretty much the same. So I'm going to take the exam towards the ending of this year.
Okay.
All right. We're rooting for you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, because once you have the LP limited permit, we can take the exam at any time.
Yeah.
So and then I was told once you do pass the exam, you can let people know that you're a licensed mental health counselor. And then once you get all of your 3,000 hours, then they actually send you the official licensure in the mail, so that when people need to look us up on Psychology Today or the Office of the Professions, it'll file legitimacy as a mental health counselor, psychotherapist in the state of New York or in other states.
Okay.
See, that's so interesting. You said right after you got your LPC, you was eligible to take the test right away.
Yeah, once I got my limited permit, once I got the LP, I was eligible to take the exam. So the state of professions in New York the requirements are different.
Yeah, so it's different from state to state because for the LCPC, you are not even invited to take that test until they know you have done all the hours. You have to do all the hours first. Like you have to get invited to take the test, and that requires you doing your hours in school, doing your internship hours. So yeah, it's unfortunately the counseling program. I mean, it's not like reciprocity. Like I'm a doctor and I'm an MD in this state, I can go and be an MD in this other state. It's not like that. Yes. There are set requirements per state, which it should not be, but here we are.
Exactly. And
I thought we had reciprocity.
No,
not at all. And one of the things I have an issue with in terms of our profession is if I wanted to move to a different state, they're looking for unrealistic requirements. Especially if the licensure is the same. So if I'm in New York and I'm an LMHC, if I want to go to North Carolina, it has to be the licensed clinical mental health counseling licensure. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what's the difference? It's pretty much the same training, the same amount of same amount
Right.
of hours, but they want you to be in good standing as a therapist in the original state where you were issued your license for like about 2 to 5 years. I'm not waiting another 2 to 5 years in New York. That's just not gonna
Yeah.
and I'm not sure how it is in your state with your licensure as a LCPC.
Well,
How
well,
many states
it's
can you
hard for
cover?
people to be an LCPC. So to come from another state, you got to jump through some hoops. You have to make sure the education requirements are still the same. It's ridiculous, and they're still fighting. They're still advocating for that in our profession.
Right, and they're also still advocating for mental health counselors. I know, and I'm not sure if it's the same thing for you, Diana, but for mental health counselors, they're still advocating for us in the state of Albany to diagnose on our own, like as independent therapists. Like it's a whole issue. It's a whole issue. Like they're fighting for us not to diagnose unless you are a licensed psychologist or a licensed clinical social worker. Like they're fighting for us not to diagnose, but like it's no competition. There's so much, and especially as Black therapists, it's like egregiously underserved. Like it's bad. Like we are part of the 4.1% of therapists in the world. Like if you look at the statistics, 86% of psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, mental health counselors are white. Right, 4.1% are Black. Within that 4.1%, 1% are Black males. Trying to serve 13% of the Black population. Those numbers are crazy. So
yeah, you usually don't see males in our profession.
No, not at all. Female dominant. Absolutely female dominant.
All right. Miss Vallori.
The exams, right? So for coaching, your certification, once you complete your 60 hours, you'll take a certification exam, right? Basically like about 100 questions, and you'll have a textbook. It covers all the competencies, the ethical guidelines, the practicalities of that you've learned in accordance with what the ICF requires, right? Then once you do that and you go for credentialing, right? As we've established, there are different requirements for each level. However, what you have to take at the exam that you have to take for credentialing is what they call the CKA, the coaching knowledge assessment. That's what it is, right? And so it incorporates your experience from your coaching hours. There's a multiple choice exam, not so different than your credentialing, but it's on the criteria of it is based on now that you're coaching, you're accumulating hours, how you're actually doing it and how you're applying the practicalities, the core competencies, and all of that. And what happens after that is once you pass that, then you have to renew every 3 years. So for myself, I renew my credentials and I renew my accreditation for my institute that certifies people as professional coaches. So,
Awesome.
and that's it.
Oh, okay.
Wow,
All right. So we've talked about a little bit about counseling and coaching because we're going to get ready to head out. So one last thing is that the biblical counseling, okay? Because I've been training in the area of biblical counseling for quite a long while, and now I'm taking another certification in biblical counseling. And so you have biblical counseling, and you also have Christian counseling. They can be used synonymously, interchangeably. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought she was going to say something. Oh, yeah. I see her waving. I was like, oh,
she was saying bye. Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. So,
okay. She wrote, I have to jump off momentarily. Okay.
Yeah.
That she was waving. Okay.
Oh, yeah. She was waving. I thought she was like saying hi.
Right. I thought she wanted to say something.
I know, right? So the other two, they had to leave a little bit earlier, so we're gonna get ready to get off in a few as well. So there's Christian counseling and there's also biblical counseling, and they can actually uh, be used interchangeably. However,
Mm-hmm.
Christian counseling is like a combination, or it's an integration of secular training and
Mm-hmm.
counseling, and also biblical knowledge. And you're like
Mm-hmm.
infusing the two, and you're able to pull from the secular counseling and give a biblical perspective on a particular
Mm-hmm.
issue. And so, and it's also focused on discipleship as well, and just coming from a godly and spiritual perspective. And so that's what biblical counselors pretty much do. As far as the training, it varies from organization to organization. They have the Association of Biblical Counselors, the International Association of Biblical Counselors, and there's an American Association of Christian Counselors as well. And
Mm-hmm.
so there are also two schools of thought, and those schools of thought is to where one teaches from a biblical perspective and one is more integrationist. And so the training varies. And so there is a process of an internship, there is a process of a practicum,
Mm-hmm.
and then they also give Bible knowledge tests and things of that particular nature. And so that's some of the areas and the focus of a biblical or a Christian counselor. And some organizations require you, in order to be certified, that you have to have a Master of Divinity in Christian or biblical counseling,
Mm-hmm.
or at an accredited organization. And some aren't, and some are. So it
Right.
really depends on where you go to and who you're actually being trained by. There's also pastoral counseling, and there's also chaplaincy as well. That's another area, a clinical area for the individual who's trained in pastoral care or in Christian counseling as well, from a seminary or organization such as the Association for Clinical Pastoral Education. There's the Organization Association for Professional Chaplains.
Mm-hmm.
There is also the College of Pastoral Supervision and Psychotherapy. That's another chaplaincy training organization. So these are just different fields that are out there about when it comes down to training with counseling. And so um, the others, they didn't get a chance to let them know about their about the programs that they're actually a part of, where they can actually locate them and things of that nature. And that's pretty much it, So that's pretty much it. I just thank everybody for actually coming on tonight, because the other two had to jump off because they have to go and do some other things, and that's pretty much it. So
Well, thank you for inviting me. Listen, I've been
yeah.
my everything was working at 6:30. I was
Oh,
ready. I was
it's
set to
all right.
go.
It's okay.
And then no, I want to know what's wrong with my camera. Now it's not coming
Oh.
on. So I don't know.
Yeah, but things happen, because not too long ago, it was early this year. I was on another friend of mine, doing a panel discussion for another friend of mine, and I was on there. The internet was going in and out, and I was just going in and out, and it was just a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to kick myself out.
Wow.
Things just didn't work very well. So, but next time I'm gonna have you on again as well, and then we could, see each other face to face, and we'll go more into the counseling. Okay?
Well, thank you. Look, trust me, I'm about to see what's going on right after I get off. Turn everything off and turn it back
Yeah.
on. See what's
Mhm.
up.
Okay, so everybody, thank you for actually tuning in for tonight's conversation through ATS Fellowship, Agape Love Network, about life coaching, mental health coaching, life, professional counseling and biblical counseling, and we're going to discuss it more. Actually, I'm going to actually be doing a presentation in the ATS Fellowship group for seminary students who are looking into the different fields of counseling as well. So thank y'all for actually coming on here tonight. And we'll see you next time. Also, the first and the fourth Wednesdays of the month, we have Guy Talk, and we also have Woman Talk. Okay, so stay tuned for that. And that's pretty much it. I'll see everybody later. To tune in from Omar Liles, the mental health coach, the life and mental health coach from Agape Love Network ATS Fellowship. Peace. Have a blessed and wonderful evening.
You too.